guys, it's Kwana back again with another review. Hope you guys are doing awesome. All right, so today I'm going to be talking a little bit about Fear Street Part 2, 1978. This is the sequel to the Part 1, 1994 in the trilogy. It's directed by Lee Janik. Hopefully I'm saying that name correctly. And this particular film stars Sadie Sink and Emily Rudd as our two lead characters. It follows up right immediately after 1994, where we get to see Dina and Josh head over to C. Berman, one of the only survivors of the witch Sarah Fear, to find out what they can possibly do to survive, and most importantly, what they can do to save Sam, who has now been possessed by the witch. The character of C. Berman is also played by Jillian Jacobs, who's kind of narrating this particular story. And I found that particular decision to have her narrating the story, while not completely a flawed decision, it had a couple of moments that were lacking for me. There were moments where her character couldn't possibly know certain things that were happening, especially given the way that everything occurs and how much information they give us, with the two sisters being apart for the bulk of the movie. And so I felt like that was one flaw that really kind of like was unsettling for me. Likewise, opposite of that is in 1666, which I felt was a much stronger choice to how they were telling the narrative. And so that was one little bit of, thing that kind of just rubbed me the wrong way. But let's talk about 1978. So this is definitely a classic camp slasher film. Very much Friday the 13th vibes there with Jason, kind of a little bit of like Michael Myers vibes, where you have these two girls, Ziggy Berman and Cindy Berman. They are sisters. Ziggy is the younger sister, and she is that Shadysider who is definitely being tormented by the Sunnyvalers. She's being heralded as the witch, being bullied. And this leads us to kind of finding out like why these sisters are kind of at odds with each other. Cindy is leaning more into a wholesome kind of personality. She believes that that's the way for her to get out of Shadyside. Ziggy doesn't think that there's any way to get out of Shadyside, and so might as well just lean into the Shadysider stereotypes as much as possible and enjoy your life. We also are introduced to the character of Alice, who is Cindy's best friend or former best friend, who kind of in the same vein of Ziggy leans into that Shadysider stereotype a little too heavily, becomes kind of a stoner, druggy kind of personality, which has caused some division between her and Cindy. I will go ahead and tell you, I personally did not care for Alice's character at all. While there were moments that I thought, okay, I can understand the creation of the character as a vehicle to give us some information, I would have rather that time spent with Cindy and Alice to be spent between Cindy and Ziggy. Likewise, we get a chance to meet young Sheriff Nick Good, who I thought was an adorable character in this. Really got a chance to like him, get a chance to see his soft spot for Ziggy, which made him a very likable character. And we're also introduced to Thomas Slater, who is Cindy's boyfriend. Again, a very likable character. He, it seems like a very supportive boyfriend. And unfortunately, he is very early on targeted by the witch and terrorized. I will say this. This is a movie that does something very unique that from a lot of slasher movies, in that you kind of really sympathize with the killer in this particular movie, because you get to spend some time with this character for a while before they become a killer, and it really makes you feel bad for them that basically this is going to be the story of their life now, is that they're going to be the killer of Camp Nightwing. By the way, Camp Nightwing, I believe, comes from book 12 of the Fear Street books, and I think that one is entitled Lights Out. That one is entitled Lights Out. I remember reading Lights Out. I kind of skipped around as a kid reading Fear Street, and so I read Wrong Number first, and I think I read Nights Out last, which probably is one of the reasons why I never asked to go to sleepaway camp at all growing up. I went a couple of times, and that was enough for me. There are a lot of characters that we're introduced to in this movie, and some of them, you're introduced to them and, it's brief and it's just enough to kind of meet out those stereotypical roles that you have in horror films. The characters that are going to get killed very quickly, the promiscuous girl who's having sex is going to get killed, the nerdy guy who has no hope of getting the girl's attention is going to get killed, the camp couples are going to get killed, the druggies are going to get killed. Like, they're very much filling certain stereotypical roles. And I didn't mind that because, again, I feel like this film is an homage to so many other horror films, and I feel like it's just leaning into that. So I felt like it's very self-aware that that's the role that it's playing. So I didn't mind that as much, but I did feel like I would have rather spent a little bit more time with some of our core characters and less time with some of those other secondary characters. Now, let me talk one thing really quickly that I enjoyed about 1994, and I was sad that that wasn't present in 1778, and that was the diversity of the cast. In 1994, of course, we have our main character, Dina, who is played by a Latino woman. You've got her brother, played by an Latino male. You have, her best friends, and I'm not sure exactly what the actress who plays Kate, what her ethnicity is. She reads on the screen as possibly being a mixed race Asian, but I'm not 100% certain, so I don't want to say that with any definitiveness. However, it felt like a very diverse cast, and then you had characters that actually had some real screen time, or at least a couple of lines of different ethnicities. Now, again, it was 1994, so that's understandable, and if I'm not mistaken, this is definitely supposed to be set in like New England. So again, the lack of diversity present could be understandable, but there were tons of background characters of different races that we saw in the campers. Only 2 of them actually had any kind of lines, and it was very, very brief in the film. And so I felt like the lack of diversity amongst the counselors was so obvious in this film because we got that first film that has so much diversity in it. And I will say, because so many kids in America probably don't go to sleepaway camp, I only went to sleepaway camp where it was like one night overnight and that was it. That's one of the reasons why I'm not quite fond of these kinds of slasher films, because they feel so unrelatable. It feels like very much a thing that wealthy white kids do. They go away to sleepaway camp and they get killed. And so because that's kind of the mentality that I went into it with, subconsciously, but it happens, just bias that I have, but it made some of the characters unrelatable, made me care about them even less. And I think if they would have had that diversity in the counselors a little bit more, even not heavily, but just a couple, I think it would have made that part of the film a little bit more enjoyable. I also wish we would have spent a little bit more time with Dina and Josh and kind of getting a sense of like their sibling connection, because I still feel like that's a little bit lacking for me. Soundtrack awesome. The Easter eggs in this were really, really good and solid. It really felt like you were watching a film that was filmed in the 70s and 80s, and so I can appreciate that. So even though this is not my favorite of what we've gotten so far, still a really good solid watch. The kills were bloody and gruesome. I felt like a lot of the kills they cut away, so you're not actually getting the full impact of the kill. You're getting more of like this lead into the kill and then the after effect of the kill, which I think makes this a little bit more palatable for people who don't really like scary movies. And I really appreciate the fact that when they did make the choice to kill some of the younger campers, they did not show those on the screen. I think that they were very self-aware that that would be a little too much for most viewers to see younger kids getting killed in such a gruesome manner. So they chose to not show those on screen, even though they went and leaned into it. And I can appreciate that as well. So I want to know down below in the comments what you thought of Fear Street 1978. Did you love it? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Did you prefer 78 or 94? Which one is your favorite? And were you like me? I felt really bad for the killer. And this one, I kind of like that. I like that we kind of got to know the killer a little bit, because we didn't get to know the killer at all in 94. And I kind of like that we got to know the killer a little bit in this one. That's a little different spin that I wasn't expecting. All right, guys, so that's it for this video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Toodles.